Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast. Today is Friday, January 10th, 2020. Today I'm going to recap yesterday's college basketball games as well as NBA and NHL. Look ahead to the weekend's games. I'll pick them all for you. What we know and what I question involving the 8 remaining NFL playoff teams. Then I'll pick the playoff games. And then I'll also pick the FCS title game for college football. And then I'll do my best bet of the day. Okay, first we're going to do college basketball. Go over last night's slate. We'll look ahead to tonight and the rest of the weekend. You know the drill for the Saturday and Sunday. I do a projected line. And then I pick the game with my projected line. And then I'll look back and see how close I was with the Saturday morning or Sunday morning line to what I project. I still never did it from last week when I made my return podcast. So I'll do that eventually and see how close I was with my projected line, and the game closing line will go by. So college basketball. Last night, a lot of big games. Towson over Drexel 89-73. Towson 8-9, Drexel 9-8. Number 19, Michigan over Purdue 84-78 in double overtime. Michigan 11-4, Purdue 9-7. Number 23, Wichita State over number 21, Memphis 76-67. Wichita 14-1, Memphis 12-3. Delaware over James Madison 80-76. Delaware 12-5, James Madison 8-8. Morehead State over SIU Edwardsville 83-77. Morehead 8-8. Edwardsville 4-12. Georgia Southern over UL Monroe 67-56. Southern 10-7. UL Monroe 6-9. Youngstown State over Oakland 61-60. Youngstown 10-7. Oakland 6-11. UTSA over Louisiana Tech 89-73. This was a surprise to me. UTSA 7-9. Louisiana Tech 11-4. Jacksonville over NJIT, 68-52. Jacksonville 8-9, NJIT 3-12. Liberty over North Alabama, 63-52. Liberty 17-1. North Alabama 6-10. Columbia over Mount St. Vincent, 86-56. Columbia is now 5-11. William & Mary over UNC Wilmington, 79-63. William & Mary 12-5. Wilmington 5-13. Cleveland State over Detroit Mercy 64-59. Cleveland State 7-10. Detroit 3-14. Austin Peay over Texas Tech 75-62. Austin Peay 9-7. Tennessee Tech 3-13. LIU over Central Connecticut 90-78. LIU 6-9. Central Con 1-15. Sacred Heart over Fairleigh Dickinson 77-75. Sacred Heart 9-7, Fairleigh Dickinson 3-11. Merrimack over Mount St. Mary's 64-61. Merrimack 8-8. Mount St. Mary's 5-11. Robert Morris over St. Francis Brooklyn 78-52. Robert Morris 7-9. Brooklyn 7-7. St. Francis Pennsylvania over Wagner 80-62. St. Fran 9-5 and Wagner 4-10. Georgia State over Louisiana 90-52. Georgia State 11-6. Louisiana 7-10. Troy over Little Rock 76-71. Troy 7-10. Little Rock 11-6. North Florida over Florida Gulf Coast 89-74. North Florida 10-8. Gulf Coast 4-14. Charleston over Elan 73-65. Charleston 11-6. Elan 4-13. Siena over St. Peter's 61-58. Siena 7-6. St. Peter's 5-7. Eastern Kentucky over Eastern Illinois 77-74. Eastern Kentucky 5-11. Eastern Illinois 7-8. Lipscomb over Kennesaw State 85-73. Lipscomb 7-9. Kennesaw 1-15. Marshall over Middle Tennessee 79-75. Marshall 8-8. Middle 4-12. North Texas over FIU 74-56. North Texas 8-8. FIU 11-5. FAU over Rice 81-76. FAU 11-5. Rice 8-8. South Alabama over Arkansas State 75-59. South Alabama 10-7. Arkansas State 11-6. Texas State over Coastal Carolina 78-66. Texas State 9-8. Coastal Carolina 10-7. Texas Arlington over App State, 66-56. UTA, 6-11. App State, 9-8. Oral Roberts over North Dakota State, 79-73. Oral Roberts, 8-8. North Dakota State, 11-6. Hofstra over Northeastern, 74-72. I was correct on this one. Hofstra, 13-5. Northeastern, 9-8. UAB over Western Kentucky, 72-62. UAB, 10-6. Western Kentucky, 9-6. Texas Rio Grande over UMBC, 76-64. Rio Grande, 5-10. UMKC, 9-8. Belmont over Southeast Missouri State, 89-64. Belmont, 11-5. Missouri State, 4-12. Or Southeast Missouri State, I should say. Tennessee Martin over Tennessee State, 87-74. Tennessee Martin, 5-9. Tennessee State, 10-6. Number 8, Michigan State over Minnesota, 74-58. Michigan State, 13-3. Minnesota, 8-7. Number 9, Oregon over number 24, Arizona, 74-73 in overtime in what was a fantastic game. Oregon, 13-3. Arizona, 11-4. UTEP over Southern Miss, 76-64. Southern Miss, 10-6. Oh, I'm sorry, UTEP 10-6. Southern Miss, 4-12. Stanford over Washington, 61-55. Stanford 13-2. Washington 11-5. Murray State over Jacksonville 72-68. Murray State 10-5. Jacksonville State 7-9. New Mexico State over Chicago State 93-54. They covered that big number that I alluded to yesterday. New Mexico State 11-6. Chicago State 4-14. Northern Colorado over Weber State 65-64. Northern Colorado 10-5. Weber State 5-10. Southern Utah over Idaho State, 71-55. Southern Utah, 10-5. Idaho State, 5-8. Montana over Eastern Washington, 90-63. Montana, 8-8. Eastern Washington, 9-6. Montana State over Idaho, 71-68. Montana State, 9-7. Idaho, 5-10. Number 1, Gonzaga over San Diego, 94-50. Gonzaga, 17-1. San Diego, 7-11. Hawaii over Cal State Fullerton, 75-59. Hawaii, 10-5. Cal State, 5-11. Riverside over UC Davis, 65-59. UC Riverside, 11-6. UC Davis, 6-11. Sacramento State over Northern Arizona, 64-57. Sacramento State, 9-4. Northern Arizona, 7-6. Cal over Washington State, 73-66. Cal, 7-8. Washington State, 10-6. Arizona State over Oregon State, 82-76. A big win for Bobby Hurley. I thought they were live here. I didn't have the guts to actually pull the trigger. I thought they'd cover, but not win. 10-5 they are. Oregon State drops to 10-4. San Francisco over Santa Clara, 80-61. An impressive win for San Francisco. They're 12-6. Santa Clara is 14-3. St. Mary's over BYU, 87-84 in overtime. St. Mary's 15-3. BYU 12-5. Tonight's slate, 5 o'clock, ESPNU, Princeton, Penn. Penn's a 1-point road favorite. I think that's a steal. I think they're better than Princeton. Ivy League opener. So maybe that crowd in Princeton will be rocking. I think it will be competitive a little, but I just think that Penn's better. So give me Penn -1. Won't be dumbfounded if they win by double digits. Number 12, Maryland at Iowa. 7 o'clock, Fox Sports 1. Maryland's a 2-point favorite. I love Iowa getting the 2. Trap game for Maryland. Letdown spot after Ohio State victory. Iowa bounced back. They went outright. Buffalo, Miami of Ohio, 7 o'clock, CBS Sports Network. Buffalo is favored by 1.5. I think they win this one. They're a team that is not as good as last year, but I do think that they'll start to show up a little bit in conference play. So give me Buffalo -1.5. Manhattan, Fairfield, Niagara, Quinnipiac, Wright State, IUPUI. Northern Kentucky, UIC on ESPN2. Northern Kentucky is a 1.5-point favorite. I think Northern Kentucky is going to cover that. They're the better team. They're in play for the auto bid in that league, in my opinion. So give me Northern Kentucky -1.5. Canisius, Monmouth, Iona, Rider on ESPNU at 7 o'clock. Rider's favored by 6.5. Iona's not the Iona of old, if we learned anything from this season so far from the Metro Atlantic. Iona I don't like going up against Tim Kluse very often. I'm not going to do it. I just think they'll be competitive here. I don't think Ryder's all that great. So give me Iona plus the points. Competitive game. 9 o'clock, Fox Sports 1, number 6, Butler at Providence. Butler's a 1.5 favorite. I love Providence plus the 1.5. I think they're going to win the game outright. Providence has been playing great basketball. Won't be surprised if Providence closes as a favorite. This is kind of reminiscent of West Virginia, Oklahoma State from earlier in the week. That's my biggest fear here. But Providence is better than Oklahoma State right now. Butler, they are probably better than West Virginia right now. They're ranked higher than West Virginia, but that doesn't mean that they're definitely better than West Virginia. West Virginia has some impressive wins on their resume. So does Butler. Butler would probably be a 1 seed if the tournament ended today, but Butler has some opportunities down the road. They still have got to play Villanova down the road, and Seton Hall, and all these other solid teams from the Big East. So, give me Providence plus 1.5 to get the win and extend this winning streak they have going here. And then 9 o'clock, CBS Sports Network, Ball State at Akron. Akron's a 3.5-point favorite. I love Akron. They're the better team. And I think this is the best team in the MAC this year. So give me Akron minus 3.5. I think that's a steal. I think Ball State, people are judging them still from last year because they had some success last year and beat Buffalo last year. So I just think that Ball State's a little overrated, and Akron, I think, is being underrated. Yeah, Akron and Bowling Green are the best 2 teams in the MAC this year. I can't forget about Bowling Green. So give me Akron minus 3.5. Saturday, 12 o'clock on Fox, number 11, Ohio State at Indiana. I would make Ohio State here a 2-point favorite. Although Indiana could be favored in this game, but I won't be surprised if Ohio State's favored in this game because they're going to judge them because of the win they have at Carolina and all these other sexy wins that they have that aren't so sexy anymore. Obviously, Carolina's having the year from hell. No Cole Anthony. We'll get to them once we pass them on the games list. So, 12 o'clock on Fox, number 11, Ohio State at Indiana. I'd make it Buckeyes by 2, but that's why I'd make that line because of Caleb Wesson and the fact that I'm not sold on Indiana. The loser of this game, I think, is in trouble, and I think that is going to be the Buckeyes. So, give me Indiana here to win the game and cover my projected spread of 2, and people are going to be talking about Ohio State and whether their hot start was a fluke or not. And that won't look good for teams like West Virginia who have big wins for them, over them. And obviously Maryland. Alabama, number 14, Kentucky, 12 o'clock on ESPN. I'd make Kentucky by 10.5 in this game. I just think Kentucky's so much better than everybody else right now in the SEC outside of maybe Auburn. But I'm not so sold on Auburn. Kentucky, I'm sold on. They've had a couple fluke losses here and there. They're peaking right now. They're going to win this game by 15 plus, so give me Kentucky there. Fox Sports 1, Georgetown at number 16, Villanova. Obviously, this game's going to be played at the Wells Fargo Center. I'd make Nova a 9.5-point favorite. I think they're going to win big here. Georgetown coming off the big win over St. John's. I just think Villanova's just ready to take off. They had that great win over Kansas. I know they lost the other day to Marquette, but I think they're fine. So give me Villanova here to win by double digits. Rutgers, Illinois, 12 o'clock Big Ten Network. I'd make Illinois a 3.5-point favorite here at home. I think that Rutgers has a letdown after the Penn State game, so give me Illinois here to win and cover that projected number. Fox Sports 2, DePaul St. John's from Madison Square Garden. I'd make this game St. John's by 3. I think these teams are even, and I think St. John's finally gets off the snide and gets a important win for that program going forward this year. So give me St. John's at home against DePaul. Cincinnati, UCF, 12 o'clock ESPN 2. Two teams I think are overrated. I would make this UCF by 3. I think they win this going away. I think Cincinnati's the most overrated team in the AAC right now. Or you could make a case for Memphis without Weissman there, but I still think Cincinnati's being a reputation by past success with Mick Cronin narrative. So give me UCF here. I think this should be a 3-point line. Tulane Temple, 12 o'clock on ESPNU. I'd make this... If UConn was given 11.5 against Tulane the other day, I would make Temple like a 10-point favorite. I think bookmakers are adjusting on Tulane and realizing this team isn't all that bad. And if it is Temple by 10, I'd take Tulane plus the points and Temple to win. 12:30 NBCSN, UMass and number 15 Dayton. I would make this game Dayton by... Call me nuts here. Call me absolutely nuts. I'd make this game Dayton by 18.5. I think Dayton's that good. Obi Toppin's that good. So give me Dayton to cover that projected number. 1 o'clock CBS, the game of the day. Number 4 Baylor, number 3 Kansas. These two teams are combined 24-3. Best two teams in the Big 12. I'd make Kansas a 5.5 point favorite. They were giving 10 to West Virginia, if I'm not mistaken, which I thought was high. But I think the perception of Baylor is better than the perception of West Virginia, and that's why I think it will be adjusted a little bit with these better Big 12 teams against Kansas, because West Virginia obviously covered that game. If it's Kansas by 5.5, I'd still take Baylor in the points. I just think this is a close game. Kansas wins, but Baylor hangs around and covers my projected line of 5.5. Vermont, UMBC, Army, Boston University, Bowling Green, Ohio, Lafayette, Loyola, Maryland, Wagner, Robert Morris, SEC Network, South Carolina, Tennessee. These two teams are not good at all. I'd make Tennessee by 6, only because I just don't think South Carolina is good whatsoever. Tennessee, that was a really impressive win the other day. I think they don't cover that. I think South Carolina would cover that 6. I just think Tennessee would win, but I think it's a close game. 2 o'clock ESPN, number 13, Louisville at Notre Dame. I'd make Louisville a favorite here by 4. Tough one. Notre Dame really hasn't beaten anybody good this year, so I would take Louisville minus my projected line of 4. Fordham St. Bonaventure. I would make this line the Bonnies by 8.5, and I think they'd cover that. The Bonnies have been pretty good this year, on the more underrated teams in the A-10 this year. So I'd take St. Bonnie to cover that projected 8.5. Yale Monroe, Georgia State, Sanford Chattanooga, NC Central, Delaware State, Holy Cross Bucknell, Detroit Mercy, Youngstown State, Illinois State, Indiana State, Delaware Towson, Charleston, William and Mary, Campbell Radford, Oklahoma State, TCU on ESPN 2. I'd make this game tough. TCU by 3.5, and I think they'd cover that. Oklahoma State, I think, is arguably the worst team in the Big 12, either them or Iowa State. TCU's overachieved. That's credit to Jamie Dixon. So give me TCU minus my projected total of 3.5, or I should say line. SMU East Carolina on ESPNU. I'd make this line SMU by 9. I think SMU's that good. And I think they win this game by double digits. I think East Carolina's going to have a letdown after the South Florida win. SMU's on a roll. They're going to make the tournament. So give me SMU minus my projected number of 9. CBS Sports Network, Rhode Island, VCU. A game that's normally good in the A-10. It's still good. VCU's 12-3, but not getting the credit it's deserved. And that's probably because Dayton's in that conference, and everybody loves Dayton. I would make VCU a 5-point home favorite here against Rhode Island. I think they'd cover that. They're the better team. Rhode Island's good too, but I just think this is a rough spot for them. George Mason, LaSalle, tough one. I'd make LaSalle by 2, and I think they'd cover that. I have a sense here that George Mason is heading in the wrong direction after a good start, so give me LaSalle minus my number of 2. Creighton, Xavier, 2 o'clock on Fox. Simple. Xavier by 3. Tough. These two teams are both 12-4, and they both kind of need this game for resume purposes. I'll go with the home team minus my projected number of 3. ACC Network, NC State, Virginia Tech, they're both 11-4. Both these teams need this game. I would make this Virginia Tech by 2.5. I think they win that and cover. Mike Young's done a fantastic job there in year 1. The case for NC State is the letdown factor for Virginia Tech after a Syracuse win. 2:15 Big Ten, Eric, Wisconsin, Penn State. Great game here. I would make this Penn State by 3. And the reason why I'd make it that low is because Wisconsin's playing better. I just don't like the spot for Wisconsin. I like the bounce back side for Penn State. So give me Penn State in that one. I'd make that a 3-point line. 2:30 NBCSN, St. Joseph's and Dayton. Davidson. I'd make Davidson a 10.5-point favorite. This team needs to get going after a disappointing non-con and a disappointing start to conference play. They've been the most disappointing team in the A-10 by far this season. A lot of people thought this was the favorite in the preseason. I think myself included. I think I had Davidson winning that conference before the year. Oops, that probably won't happen. But I like them in this spot. I don't think St. Joe's is very good. They're obviously the worst team in this conference. So give me Davidson minus my number of 10.5. 3 o'clock, Maine, Albany, Oakland, Cleveland State, Eastern Illinois, Moorhead State, FIU, Rice, Coastal Carolina, Texas, Arlington, Denver, Western Illinois, Marshall, UAB, Merrimack and Central Connecticut at 3:30, Central Michigan, Kent State. Kent State's another good team from the MAC. Shout out to them. A&M and Vandy on the SEC Network. Yikes, this is a bad game. I'd make this a pick'em, quite frankly, because I think A&M's better, and they have a better coach as of right now, I think. And the case for Vandy is letdown for A&M after A&M's recent win, but I'm taking Vandy. I just think that the market is going to overrate the Aggies a little bit, like I think they have a lot throughout the season. So give me Vanderbilt here at home to get themselves a nice win. Number 1, Gonzaga and Loyola Marymount. Oof, if Gonzaga was giving 17 to San Diego, you can only imagine how much they're going to be giving to Loyola Marymount. 24 would be my line. I think they'd cover that. They're destroying everybody, so there you go. Syracuse and number 18, Virginia, 4 o'clock ESPN. I'd make this line Virginia by 7. And I would take the Cavs. This is a good bounce back spot after the Boston College loss. Syracuse, meanwhile, I don't think can get out of its own way right now. They just have been brutal. Syracuse sometimes shows up for these games against these highly ranked teams on the road. But my thing is that I like to take Syracuse when they're playing Duke and Carolina and Louisville. Because I think Jim Boeheim loves when his team plays Krzyzewski, Williams. But Louisville not so much anymore because Rick Pitino is not there anymore. But I just remember they would show up a lot for the Louisville games when Pitino was there. But I won't be dumbfounded if this is a single-digit game, but I'd make it Virginia by 7, and I think they'd cover that. CBS Sports Network, Marquette and Seton Hall. I'd make this game Seton Hall by 3.5. The best player on the court in this game, you could argue Marcus Howard, you could argue Miles Powell. To me, it comes down to who's home, and that's Miles Powell. So give me Seton Hall minus my number of 3.5. They have a better supporting cast around Powell than Marquette does around Marcus Howard. So give me Seton Hall in that one. ESPN2, Houston, Tulsa. I'd make this game Houston by 4. And I think they'd cover that easily. I just think Houston's rolling. Them and SMU have been really, really pleasant surprises in conference play this year. Houston obviously was a surprise last year, but they're proving that they're here to stay. So give me Houston minus my projected number of 4. Duquesne and George Washington. I'd make this Duquesne by 6 on the road. I think they'd cover that. Duquesne's on fire. This might be the favorite in the A-10 this year. It's either them, Dayton, or St. Louis. But I think it'll ultimately be Dayton because of Opie Toppin. But Duquesne can't be ruled out as a favorite rather than an underdog like George Washington or Fordham or UMass or one of those types of teams. So give me Duquesne minus my number of 6. Florida, Gulf Coast, and Stetson, SIU, Edwardsville, and Eastern Kentucky. Drake, Valparaiso, Evansville, and Loyola, Chicago. Wilmington and Elan. Drexel, James Madison. High Point, Presbyterian, Mount St. Mary's, and Bryant. Houston State, Central Arkansas, Louisiana, and Georgia Southern. Colgate, Navy. Northern Iowa, Missouri State. Is that a trap game for Northern Iowa? I'd say yes, so I wouldn't rule out an upset there. By the way, I'd make that line Northern Iowa by 4.5. The reason why I like this game, because Northern Iowa is 13-2 and should be talked about more in the sport as a legit type of at-large candidate. And then Missouri State was the preseason favorite in that conference, and they've underwhelmed. But I think Northern Iowa would cover my number. VMI East, Tennessee State. Coppin State, Bethune-Cookman, Southern Miss, UTSA, FAU, North Texas, Old Dominion, Charlotte, Morgan State, Florida A&M, Norfolk State, Howard, NCAT, Maryland Eastern, Fairleigh Dickinson, Long Island, Omaha, South Dakota at 4:30, A&M, Corpus Christi, and Abilene Christian, Northwestern, St. McNeese, Clemson, North Carolina at 4:30 on the ACC Network. I'd make this game Carolina by 8. I just think that Clemson's way worse than Pitt. And I'd still take Clemson. I think Carolina's going to be still living on their reputation of their past, and really this team just isn't good this year. I don't think Clemson will win like Pitt did. I actually picked Pitt to win on the podcast the other day. But I just think that this game's close and Carolina will get by Clemson. So give me Carolina to win, but Clemson to cover my number of 8. Eastern Michigan, Northern Illinois, Nebraska, Northwestern, Big Ten Network. I'd make this Northwestern by 1.5. I think they'd win and cover that. Letdown spot for Nebraska after the upset over Iowa. North Alabama, Lipscomb, 5 o'clock. NJIT, North Florida, Nichols, Southeast Louisiana. Troy, Arkansas State, Austin P. Jacksonville State. Belmont, UT Martin, App State, Texas State, Tennessee State, Southeast Missouri State. Colorado State, San Jose State, Jacksonville, Liberty, Mercer, Western Carolina, New Orleans, Incarnate Word at 5:15. 5:30, South Alabama, Little Rock, Binghamton, UMass Lowell, Asheville, Charleston Southern. 6 o'clock, ESPN, Georgia at number 5, Auburn. I'd make this Auburn by 8. I think this is a competitive game. I think Georgia covers that number. Anthony Edwards will keep them in it. But ultimately, Auburn will remain undefeated and win another close game. ESPN 2, number 22, Texas Tech at number 17, West Virginia. I'd make this line WVU by 2.5. I'd take West Virginia at home. They're arguably not the better team here, but they're the team that's playing better right now. So I guess you could say right now they are the better team, but the better team on paper is the Rail Raiders. And I think this game is somewhat competitive throughout. Won't be shocked if it comes down to a last shot. But ultimately, I think that the Mountaineers will hit their free throws, which has been a boogie bug of them for a while in the Bob Huggins era, pretty much. But I just like the spot for the Mountaineers. They're home. Crowd's going to be ruckus. So give me West Virginia minus my number of 2.5. I think they win by 6. Longwood, Hampton, Air Force, New Mexico. I'd make this game New Mexico by 6. New Mexico State was a 6.5 point favorite against Fresno the other day, and Fresno is worse than Air Force. But I'd make it personally New Mexico by 6. I think New Mexico is really good, and I think they'd cover that 6 as well. Washington State, Stanford on the Pac-12 Network. I'd make this game Stanford by 4. I would take Stanford minus my number of 4. I think that people are starting to come around on Stanford. They were actually favored over Washington the other day, which surprised me. I think the line will be lower because people might expect a letdown from them. But they're 13-2 and probably on their way to the tournament. So give me Stanford minus my number of 4. Idaho State, Northern Arizona, Arkansas, Ole Miss, SEC Network. I'd make this game tough one here. Ole Miss by 1. And I think Ole Miss is going to win. I think it's going to be one of those scenarios where the home team's a 1-point favorite. And I think that Arkansas is going to hit a little bit of a regression point, and Ole Miss needs this game. So give me Ole Miss. Georgia Tech, Boston College. I'd make this Boston College by 4. But I do think Georgia Tech's going to win this game outright. Letdown spot for BC after the Virginia win. St. Louis and Richmond, 2 very good teams from the A-10. I forgot about Richmond when talking about the favorites in that conference. Ultimately, Dayton is the favorite, but the rest of the group includes these 2 teams. I would make Richmond a 3-point home favorite in this spot. And tough one here. I'll go with Richmond. I just think that home crowd's going to be fired up. St. Louis is a good team in their own right. They have a good coach in Travis Ford. But I like just Richmond in this spot. So give me Richmond. UMKC, New Mexico State, Mississippi Valley State, Alabama State, Western Kentucky, and Middle Tennessee on the CBS Sports Network. I'd make this Western Kentucky by 4.5. I think they cover here. Bounce back spot for them. Jackson State, Alcorn State, Grambling Southern. Those are 2 6:30 games. 7 o'clock, Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and Bama A&M. UNT Greensboro and Furman, another good game in the SoCon that I want to pick. I would make Furman a home favorite here by 3.5, and I think they cover that. I think UNT Greensboro is out of the at-large picture. I just think they're in play for the auto bid. But I like Furman here to keep their slim at-large hopes alive. So give me Furman here minus my number of 3.5. South Dakota State, Purdue, Fort Wayne, Milwaukee, Green Bay, Western Michigan, Toledo, San Francisco, Pacific. I'll pick this game too. WCC, good game. 2 teams are combined 26-10. I'd make this Pacific by 2.5, and I like them here. I think it's a letdown spot for San Francisco, and I'd like Pacific at home. So give me Pacific in that one. St. Francis, Brooklyn, St. Francis, Pennsylvania, the Citadel, Wofford, UNLV, Wyoming. I'd make this game UNLV by 3 on the road. I think they'd cover that. New Hampshire, Stony Brook, Gardner Winthrop, American Lehigh, 8 o'clock ACC Network, Wake Forest, and number 2 Duke. I'd make this Duke by 14.5. I still think they'd cover that. They're the way better team, and they're home. Cal State Fullerton and UC Riverside, Southern Illinois Bradley, Mississippi State LSU. I don't know why this game's on ESPN, but it is. I'd make this LSU by 5, and I think that they'd cover that. They're starting to come around a little bit, and I'm not in love with this Mississippi State team, so give me LSU there. Portland State, Montana State, Washington, Cal, Pac-12 Network. I'd make this Washington by 3 on the road. I think it's bounce back spot, and they cover here. 8 o'clock ESPN 2, Iowa State hosts Oklahoma. I'd make this Oklahoma by 3, and I think Iowa State would win because letdown spot after the Texas win, and I just think the Cyclones are due. Longhorn Network, Kansas State, Texas. I'd make this Texas by 9. I think they bounce back here and win and cover that projected number. Nevada, Utah State on the CBS Sports Network. I'd make this Utah State by 4.5. I think they win and cover that. Nevada's not as good as last year, neither is Utah State, but I just think this is a good spot for the Aggies. Lamar Houston Baptist, North Dakota, Oral Roberts, Cal Baptist, Grand Canyon, Chicago State, Texas, Rio Grande. ESPN U, Santa Clara, St. Mary's. I'm happy that this game is getting recognition from the networks of ESPN. So they put it on. So good for them. If St. Mary's was only 3.5 against BYU, I still think that the market hasn't realized Santa Clara is actually pretty good. I would say St. Mary's by 5, and I think St. Mary's knows its situation, and they're under a lot of pressure here. Meanwhile, Santa Clara is under no pressure. Give me St. Mary's minus my number of 5. Murray State, Tennessee Tech, Prairie View, Texas Southern, they're in 8:30 now. Florida, Mizzou. I make that Florida by 1 on the road. I think they win and cover that easily. Louisiana Tech, UTEP at 9. Portland, BYU. Boise State at number 7. San Diego State, San Diego State. That's a 10 o'clock game. I'd make San Diego State a 10-point home favorite. I'm not sold on Boise State yet. I think that they win and cover San Diego State. Pepperdine, San Diego. Utah Valley, Seattle. UCLA hosts USC on ESPN2. I'd make this USC 2.5 at home. Tough one. I like the Trojans, but I wouldn't rule out an upset here. Long Beach State and UC Santa Barbara. Hawaii and UC Irvine. Cal State, Northridge, and Cal Poly. Weber State, Sacramento State, and last but not least, 10:30 Pac-12 Network. Arizona State at number 9, Oregon. I'd make Oregon a 6-point favorite. I think Arizona State is going to cover that number, but Oregon will win. Sunday, much smaller slate, 12 o'clock CBS, number 8, Michigan State at Purdue. I'd make this Sparty by 6 on the road. This is where I think they actually get picked off. I'm calling for an upset here. Purdue bounce back spot after the Michigan loss. They're home. I think that crowd's going to be ruckus and they're just due for a big win. So give me Purdue here at home. Number 23, Wichita State at UConn on CBS Sports Network. I'd make this Wichita by 4. And I think they'd cover that. I think they're better than UConn, obviously. And UConn's 10-5. I get that. But they just have had some weird losses this year. They lost to St. Joe's at home. I still think that this team is not good. Number 19, Michigan at Minnesota. 1 o'clock Big Ten Network. I'd make Michigan a 5-point favorite on the road. Another trap spot. I think Minnesota covers that 5, but Michigan will win. Canisius St. Peter's, Niagara, Iona, Siena, Manhattan at 2 o'clock. Ryder Maris, Monmouth, Quinnipiac, Northern Kentucky and IUPUI. Johnson and Wales, Rhode Island. 4 o'clock ESPN2, number 21, Memphis at South Florida. I'd make Memphis a 7-point road favorite. Good bounce back spot. I think that they'd win here over an overrated South Florida team. 4:15, Wright State UIC. 6 o'clock ESPNU, Utah at number 25, Colorado. Tough one. I make Colorado favorite by 3.5. Utah's good. I think they'll hang around. I think if Utah finds a way to pull off this upset, that kind of solidifies them as a NCAA tournament real shot. But I like Colorado here at home, minus my number of 3.5. ACC Network, Pitt, Miami. I'd make this Miami by 1 only because I just think that the public perception is that Miami's good. Quite frankly, they're not. Pitt, meanwhile, is a dark horse to make the tournament. I actually think that people are starting to notice Pitt. They're 11-4. The former Duke assistant is doing a great job with this team. I think they're going to win this game, and obviously I take them plus my number 1. 10 o'clock Fox Sports 1, number 24, Arizona at Oregon State. I'd make this Zona by 1.5, and I think Oregon State's going to pick them off here to solidify themselves as a real tournament threat. So, a real threat to make the tournament. So, give me Oregon State in an upset there, as I would make this line Arizona by 1.5, but I would take Oregon State plus the points. Finally, to the NBA. I know I spent a long time on college basketball. I'm going to be doing that on Fridays from now on the podcast. 4 games last night in the NBA slate. Sixers over the Celtics 109-98 without Joel Embiid. Philly 25-14, Boston 25-11. Cavs over the Pistons 115-112 in overtime. Cleveland 11-27, Detroit 14-25. Timberwolves over the Blazers 116-102. Minnesota 15-22. Portland 16-23. Thunder over the Rockets 113-92 in the return of Russell Westbrook. OKC 22-16. Houston 25-12. Tonight's slate 7 o'clock. Hawks Wizards 7:15. ESPN Pelicans Knicks. On the call of the game, Mike Breen, Doris Burke, and Cassidy Hubbarth doing sideline. New Orleans is 4.5 on the road. No Zion back yet. Brandon Ingram's playing well. The Pelicans are playing well as a team, and I think if they get Zion back and start or continue to win games, that they could sneak into that 8 spot in the playoffs. But I think that this is a real trap game. Knicks back from the West Coast. Got blown out their last 2 games. Granted, they're against the Jazz and the Lakers on the road. I think the Knicks are going to win outright here. RJ Barrett has been playing better. I know they've had some injuries. I think Marcus Morris is coming back tonight from injury. And by the way, those 2 blowout losses, they didn't have Morris. And in one of those games, they didn't have Julius Randle. Julius Randle's supposed to be back tonight as well. Like I said, Morris back. RJ Barrett playing better. I take the Knicks plus 4.5. I think they're winning the game outright. 7:30 Heat Nets. 8 o'clock Spurs, Grizzlies, Pacers, Bulls, Magic, Suns at 9. Hornets, Jazz, 9:45 ESPN. Lakers, Mavs. Dallas is a 2-point home favorite on the call of the game. Ryan Ruocco and Mark Jackson. George Sedano on the sidelines. Tough. Part of me wants to say, why the hell is LeBron an underdog? Why is LeBron an underdog? Because Luka Doncic is on the other side. And as far as I'm concerned, Kristaps Porzingis is still injured. And as far as I'm concerned, that the Mavericks are coming off a loss to the Nuggets, in which they could have won that game. They probably should have won that game. They were home. They had a double-digit lead in that game at times, but give Denver credit because they're resilient. And Nikola Jokic is getting back in the form a little bit. No Porzingis scares me for Dallas, so I'm taking the Lakers plus the 2. I think that LeBron is a dog. He's just not dealing with that. But there's another reason why they're an underdog. Anthony Davis may not play. That's a problem for the Lakers. But anyway, I'm going to hold my breath, take the Lakers plus the 2. I think they win. I just trust LeBron's supporting cast more than Doncic. I think Davis's loss is bigger than Porzingis' loss, obviously. But I just trust the Lakers supporting cast more. Like, I could see Rajon Rondo having 10 assists. I could see Dwight Howard having a random double-double. JaVale McGee has an impact. Contavious Caldwell-Pope shoots threes. Kyle Kuzma has a good game to improve his trade value. So, give me the Lakers plus the 2. I don't feel good about it, but if Davis plays, then that's going to be a winner. 10 o'clock, Bucks Kings. 10:30 Warriors Clippers from Los Angeles. Now we'll go to Saturday and Sunday's games. Saturday, 5 o'clock, Timberwolves Rockets. 7 o'clock, Pelicans Celtics, Bulls Pistons, Lakers Thunder at 8. So LeBron against Chris Paul. 8:30 76ers Mavs. 9 o'clock Cavs Nuggets. 10 o'clock Bucks Trailblazers. Sunday, 3:30 Heat Knicks, Jazz Wizards. 6 o'clock Spurs Raptors, Warriors Grizzlies, Hawks Nets. 8 o'clock Clippers Nuggets, Hornets Suns. Now we'll look on to the NHL, look back on last night's busy slate, and look ahead to tonight and the weekend. Alrighty. Rangers over the Devils 6-3 in Igor Shesterkin's second game, so he's 2-0. Rangers 21-18-4. Devils 15-21-7. Bruins over the Jets 5-4. The Bruins 26-8-11. Winnipeg 24-17-4. Oilers over the Canadiens 4-2. Edmonton 24-17-5. Montreal 18-20-7. So that's back-to-back games for the Oilers where they are a road underdog and they went outright. Lightning over the Coyotes 4-0. The Lightning 26-13-4. Arizona 25-17-4. Panthers over the Canucks 5-2. The Panthers are 23-16-5. Vancouver 23-17-4. Blues over the Sabres 5-1. The Blues are 28-10-7. Buffalo 19-18-7. Preds over the Blackhawks 5-2. The story of this game is that Pekka Rinne scored an empty net goal in this game. As Nashville goes to 20-16-7, first win under John Hines. Chicago back under 500 at 19-20-6. Flames over the Wild 2-1. Calgary 24-17-5. Minnesota 20-18-6. Kings over the Golden Knights 5-2. The Kings are 18-24-4. Vegas 24-17-6. Stars over the Ducks 3-0. Stars 26-14-4. Anaheim 17-22-5. And Sharks over the Blue Jackets 3-1. San Jose 20-22-4. Columbus 21-16-8. Short slate tonight, 7:30. Senators, Red Wings, Coyotes, Hurricanes, and 9 o'clock Penguins, Avs. Saturday, busy slate. 1 o'clock Canucks, Sabres. 7 o'clock Canadiens, Senators. Bruins, Islanders. Lightning, Flyers. Devils, Capitals. Kings, Hurricanes. 8 o'clock Rangers, Blues. 8:30 Ducks, Blackhawks. 10 o'clock Oilers, Flames. Blue Jackets, Golden Knights. 10:30 Stars, Sharks. Sunday, 2 o'clock Predators, Jets. 4 o'clock Canucks, Wilds. 5 o'clock Sabres, Red Wings. 6 o'clock Penguins, Coyotes. 7 o'clock Maple Leafs, Panthers, and Lightning, Devils. All right, now we'll do new segment, what we know and what I question. Fun segment I like to do. Involving a certain sports or pop culture topic and what I question and then what I know or what we know. And today's theme is the NFL playoff teams that remain. I was going to do college basketball today, but in honor of division round, I wanted to do the 8 remaining playoff teams. We'll do college basketball next week. We'll start with the Minnesota Vikings. What we know is that their front seven is awesome. They reminded us of that in their playoff win over the Saints. And what I question, can Kirk Cousins do it again? 49ers. What we know is that this is Jimmy Garoppolo's first playoff start. Because the 49ers haven't made the playoffs since Colin Kaepernick was their quarterback. And Jimmy Garoppolo did not start a playoff game for the Patriots when he was Tom Brady's backup. And my question is, which defense shows up? The one that started the year or the one that sucked that finished the year? The Tennessee Titans. What we know is that Derrick Henry is an absolute beast. And what I question is, can their defense step up the way it did last week? Ravens. What we know is that Lamar Jackson is just incredible. And my question is, will Mark Ingram be able to play and be 100%? Texans. Deshaun Watson can single-handedly win you a game, as we saw last weekend. And my question is, which defense shows up? The one that sucked in the first half of the Bills game, or the one that stepped up in the second half, which allowed Deshaun Watson to carry his team? The Kansas City Chiefs. What we know is that Patrick Mahomes is healthy and thriving. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes had that scary injury in the middle of the year. He recovered from that, and now he's himself again. And my question is, which defense shows up? The one that was bad in the beginning of the year or the one that finished strong at the end of the regular season. The Seattle Seahawks. This team continues to get lucky. Carson Wentz got hurt. Eagles receivers were hurt. This team's just lucky. And my question is, will they have success against Aaron Rodgers, meaning their defense? They obviously did have success against Josh McCown, because Josh McCown sucks. And it was reported today that McCown played with a torn hamstring, which is crazy. And last but not least, the Green Bay Packers. What we know is that the free agent / draft splurge on defense has been successful, while their 13-3 net unit is drastically improved. And my question is, will the pieces around Aaron Rodgers step up? I mentioned this last time I did the NFL playoff teams for what we know and what I question. How outside of Jimmy Graham, nobody from the Packers has really been in the big game, meaning out of the weapons Rodgers has. Maybe Devontae Adams against the Cowboys. He might have been there for that. And obviously maybe Aaron Jones. I'll just have to double check about that. But guys like Alan Lazard and Jamal Williams have never been in big playoff games before. Jake Kumro, Mercedes Lewis. So I'm fascinated to see if those guys will feel any of the pressure. Because I can't help but think about the first time Odell Beckham Jr. was in a playoff game. And he obviously was a dud and a big reason why the Giants lost in Lambeau, ironically, 3 years ago. Okay, now my picks for the weekend. We're going to go by DraftKings numbers against the spread. And then I'll obviously pick a winner straight up as well. We'll start with tomorrow afternoon's game between your 6th-seeded Minnesota Vikings, who were 10-6 on the regular season, and your NFC 1-seed San Francisco 49ers, who were 13-3 in the regular season. 4:35 NBC. Al Michaels, Chris Collinsworth, Michelle Tafoya on the call. The Vikings are coming off a sensational overtime road win in New Orleans against the Saints in the wild card round. The 49ers have had a phenomenal season and earned home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs. Kirk Cousins was awesome last week and threw the game-winning touchdown to Kyle Rudolph, which looked to be offensive interference on the play. Jimmy Garoppolo has been solid all season long, and this is his first career playoff start. The Vikings defense was very good last week, getting big stops against Drew Brees in that offense, but Xavier Rhodes has been terrible in that secondary. The 49ers defense has been a tale of two units. The first half of the season was pretty awesome, and it was vulnerable in the second half of the season when injuries started to hit. That said, with the Niners getting back a few key defensive players and the Vikings receivers, Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen, are not 100%, give me the Niners to reach their first NFC Championship game in 6 seasons. Prediction, San Francisco 27, Minnesota 16. San Francisco's a 7-point favorite. The over-under is 44. I love San Francisco to cover. I think they win that by double digits. Saturday night, 8:15, CBS. Ian Eagle, Dan Fouts on the call. 6-seeded Tennessee Titans against the AFC 1-seed Baltimore Ravens, who went 14-2 in the regular season. Baltimore's favored by 9.5, over under 47. The Titans are coming off a great win in Foxborough to knock off Tom Brady and the Patriots in the wild card round. The Ravens have been the league's best team in the regular season from a record standpoint due to the success of MVP frontrunner Lamar Jackson. The Titans' offense has been solid once Ryan Tannehill took over at quarterback, and Derrick Henry has been the best running back in the sport this season and ran all over the Pats' defense last weekend. The Ravens' offense has been unstoppable when Jackson is on the field, as well as guys like Mark Ingram, Marquise Brown, and Mark Andrews. The Titans' defense got huge stops last week in their victory, but I'm not sold on their defense. And its success last week, I feel, had to do with more Brady trying to handle father time rather than it being this good. The Ravens defense has been solid all season long and has a lot of Pro Bowlers on it. I expect the Ravens to come out and put the gas on the pedal and win this one easily as they go to their first AFC Championship game in 7 years. Prediction: Baltimore 38, Tennessee 17. I am taking the Ravens minus the 9.5. Sunday, January 12th, AFC 4-seed Houston Texans against the 2-seed Kansas City Chiefs, went 12-4 on the season. 3 o'clock, CBS, Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, Tracy Wolfson on the call. The Texans are coming off a home win over the Buffalo Bills in the wild card round, coming back from a 16-0 deficit to do it. The Chiefs are awesome yet again, are flying somewhat under the radar due to the success of the Ravens and some of the NFC teams. The sexy thing about this game is that the quarterback matchup of the Sean Watson versus Patrick Mahomes, who, along with Lamar Jackson, will be the marquee big-name quarterbacks within this new decade. Watson and the Texans' offense is starting to find rhythm in that comeback victory, and I still feel this offense isn't great without Will Fuller. The Chiefs' offense has been its usual self once Patrick Mahomes got healthy after a scary kneecap injury in October. The Texans' defense showed its vulnerability before the remarkable comeback. The Chiefs' defense has been lights out for a few weeks now, and it's going to be tested this weekend. That said, the best unit on the field is the Chiefs' offense led by Mahomes, and Arrowhead is going to be rocking as they will go to their second consecutive AFC Championship game. Prediction: Kansas City 30, Houston 23. Chiefs are a 9.5-point favorite. The over-under is 51. I am going to take the Texans plus the 9.5 to keep it close. And cover, not win. NFC 5-seed Seattle Seahawks versus 2-seeded Green Bay Packers, who are 13-3 on the season. 6:40 on Fox. Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, Eric Andrews on the call, and Chris Myers too. The Seahawks are coming off a road win in Philadelphia against the Eagles, in which Carson Wentz got injured during the game, and the Eagles had a laundry list of injuries as well. The Packers have had a great season, earning the first-round bye, and is in the playoffs for the first time in 3 seasons. The Seahawks have been carried by Russell Wilson all year long, and last weekend DK Metcalf had some big catches to help this offense. The Packers' offense has been inconsistent throughout the year, and Aaron Rodgers at times has looked like his old self, but at other times has not. The Seahawks defense was solid last week, but I think it was masked by the Eagles' injuries. The Packers defense has carried them this season after all the additions they made, whether it was in free agency or in the draft. This should be a physical game, and the game with some big catches every here and there, but I think Rodgers steps up and takes advantage of the Seahawks' soft defense, although Wilson can't be counted out here as the Packers get a big win to go to their first NFC Championship game in 3 seasons. Prediction: Green Bay 26, Seattle 19. Green Bay's giving 4.5 over under 47. I'm taking the Packers minus a 4.5. I just think that getting the Packers at under a touchdown is a bit of a steal. Now I'm going to pick the FCS championship game, which is tomorrow afternoon, 12 o'clock on ABC. You have 1-seeded James Madison against 2-seeded North Dakota State, 12 o'clock on ABC. James Madison is a 1-point favorite in Frisco. I'm surprised that they decided to put this game on ABC. This game's normally on ESPN. But good for them by putting it on ABC. Tough one here. North Dakota State's undefeated. Actually, no, I think they're the 1 seed, and JMU is the 2 seed. So let me check that real quick. James Madison, by the way, one loss this year came at West Virginia in week 1 of the FBS season. And obviously the FCS teams play 1 or 2 FBS games a season. Yeah, they're number 2. North Dakota State's number 1. James Madison in the playoffs on the way here knocked off Monmouth in the first round. Or, I'm sorry, it was really the second round. Quarterfinals, they knocked off Northern Iowa, who was the 6th seed, and then they knocked off Weber State, who was the 4th seed in the semis. Now they go to Toyota Stadium to take on North Dakota State. North Dakota State undefeated on the year. Trying to see if they picked off any team that's FBS. No, they didn't even play an FBS team. James Madison played against West Virginia and lost, but North Dakota went undefeated. But they have a lot of big wins throughout the year. They knocked off Delaware, who was ranked at the time they played him, Illinois State, Northern Iowa, who's in their conference, I believe. South Dakota State, game day was there. They knocked them off. And then the playoffs, in the second round, they knocked off 19-seeded Nichols, 13-seeded Illinois State, 5-seeded Montana State, and then now here they are against James Madison. Tough call. JMU's a 1-point favorite. Both of these teams have some solid players. North Dakota State's a good team that really has a good offense. I know their offense has shown vulnerabilities at times. Obviously, the 9-3 game over Illinois State. James Madison, their strength is on defense. So, you know what? I'm going to go with James Madison. I don't feel good about it, although North Dakota State's are undefeated. But, like I said, James Madison's lone loss came in the first week of the season at West Virginia by 7 points in Morgantown. So give me James Madison. I think it's a competitive game. I think they win by a field goal. So give me James Madison to win the FCS championship game. Best bet of the day brought to you by DraftKings, or I should say Best Bets. We'll start with an NBA pick. Tough board tonight. I'm going to take the Grizzlies -1 against the Spurs. The Spurs have been playing good basketball. I get it. But the best player on the court in this game is Ja Morant. So give me the Grizzlies -1 as my NBA best bet. Although the Knicks +4.5 is a good one as well. The tough one, the pick was the Mavs-Lakers game. I pick it anyway because it's an ESPN game, but I don't include it in best bets unless if that's just the best play in my mind. Like, I should have done with Golden State the other night. In terms of college, I'm going to go with Akron -3.5. I alluded to it earlier. They're one of the best teams in the MAC this year, as well as Bowling Green and Kent State. So, give me Akron as my best bet in college basketball -3.5 against Ball State. So that's it for today. I'll be back on Monday recapping everything, looking ahead to everything for Monday night, including the FBS National Football or National Championship game for the college football playoff between LSU and Clemson. We'll pick that on Monday's podcast. Maybe I'll start to have guests on again next week. We'll see. Hope you guys have a great weekend, everyone.